you ever found yourself in a situation where you are feeling less confident around who you are as a woman, as a mom, as somebody who is advocating for your children or the world or life itself? I think we all have been there where we aren't necessarily feeling the most confident in the space that we're in. Today's guest, as we continue our motherhood series, is the woman behind Girl Confident on social media and the mission. And I say mission because I think it is truly a movement actually around the permission to offend. I know that might rub you the wrong way, but please stay tuned as Rachel Luna and I break down her vision for how we gain that confidence through our own stories and maybe even those lies that we've been telling ourselves when it comes to motherhood and ourselves as women and the journey that we have been through. So stay tuned for a fun, exciting, and very real and raw conversation as Rachel shares with us her own personal journey and struggles and how she has gotten to the place where she is truly empowering women to the next step of their confident journey. Rachel, thank you. Thank you so much for joining the Thrive Forward podcast. I am beyond ecstatic to have you here today to share your story and inspire the audience because you are true inspiration, my friend, and I can't wait for everyone to hear your story.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Let's do it.
So let's share with those individuals who might be living under a rock and have no clue who Rachel Luna is. And I would say, like, are they living under a rock? Come on.
How could you not know? Just kidding.
Well, you've just been on the TLC network. You are a speaker extraordinaire, like all of the things I said at the beginning. So if you don't know who Rachel is, now you get to hear from herself telling you who she is.
That's always so interesting. Well, my name is Rachel Luna. Thank you for having me. I'm the host of the Permission to Offend podcast, the creator of the Faith Activated Journaling Experience, and I am the, what do I want to call it? The facilitator, the host of Confidence Activated Live. But really, at the end of the day, I'm a certified master coach with a concentration in neuroscience. And I am here to help you activate your faith, your worth, and your wealth. So let's talk about it.
Yes. And this month we're talking about motherhood. And I thought it was great to be able to talk about all of those aspects, the elements of faith, the elements of self-worth, the elements of wealth. And I think that, you know, you and I have talked about all of those before and the impacts we have in the community around us by being able to discover those things. How did you get to the place that you are right now? What is that journey, if you can lead us on that space as well?
The short version is a lot of failure, a lot of insecurity, a lot of self-doubt and questioning and wondering, and just constantly coming back to who am I? Which sounds so cliche, right? Now, 10 years after I've been in business, it hits so differently. But back then, when I had all these layers of childhood trauma and shame, blame, guilt, fear, worry, doubt, anxiety, and also attention deficit, and also depression, all of these things, when I would hear people ask that question, who are you? I'd be like, shut up. Who am I? You see me, you know, and by the way, I'm a Puerto Rican woman, Nuyorican, raised in New York City. I grew up in Queens, then we moved to the Bronx. So I have those sort of rough around the edges, you know, sentiment. And at the same time, I believe I am a privileged woman. I am a woman of color, but I had a lot of privilege compared to other women of Puerto Rican descent who grew up in New York City. And I want to say that because I think it's important when we consider what our life experience is like. And you and I were talking about this before we hit the record, that privilege exists and it's so hard to recognize and accept it. And for the longest time, I would be like, a privilege? What are you talking about? I'm a woman, I'm Puerto Rican, I'm short, and I would say all those things, but then I realized like, no, I went to private school, I had vacations, I had dance lessons. Like I didn't really want for much. So anyhow, so I grew up always running away from intimacy based on some things that I experienced as a child. So to answer the question, who am I? It's such an intimate discussion. It requires you to go in deep, like, yeah, who am I? Well, how do I even know? Well, your identity, I believe, is comprised of your values and your beliefs. So what do I value and what do I believe is true? And you and I were also talking about beliefs previously. And it's interesting how our beliefs will shape the stories that we tell ourselves and also shape our life experience. I didn't understand that. And so I ran from it. And anytime someone would ask me these like deep questions that really drove me to question like that internal inner knowing, it was so uncomfortable. Like just you're looking at me, right? So you can see how my body was like, oh, no, don't make me. And so I would drink. I would drink and sleep around because if I did those things, then I was numbing myself from the pain. And really, when I started to do the work and like peel back the layers, some of the things that I believed at the beginning when I was doing the work was, I'm not lovable. Everyone I love leaves me. I'm ugly. I'm fat. Now, if you see me, I'm very petite. I'm like barely 100 pounds. But that's because I had breast cancer. So,
Right.
But before that, I struggled with my weight up and down. And I got a lot of judgment and criticism and teasing and things like that because of my weight. And so my beliefs at the time were, I'm unworthy, I'm unlovable. Everyone I love leaves me. People are only with me to use me. And so if those were my beliefs, there's no wonder why I didn't want to connect with who I am, because if that was who I was, which is the deeper beliefs, then who would want to be with me? Who would want to spend time with me? Who would want to marry me? Like, no. Then I had to go into like, well, what do I value? And I'll be honest with you, the values question, I write down every single day, what do I value? And what I've discovered is that our values change day by day sometimes. That's not the same for everybody. So if you are hearing me and you're like, what are you talking about? I know my value. Great. Two truths can coexist. Okay? For me, I find that my values generally remain the same, but their priority, the hierarchy changes.
Sure.
So one day I value my health first. The next day I value my family first. One day I value my business first. The next day I value my me time. And I had to learn to give myself a lot of grace that these things could be different, that I didn't have to balance it, that I didn't have to say, I value all these things all at the same time. And my whole schedule is going to be filled with doing all these things at the same time. You know, it's impossible for me.
Right.
Now, I'm going to be, what I've also learned throughout the years is that our words matter. If I say it's impossible, that doesn't mean I'm not going to just say it's impossible. I believe it's impossible for me. It may be possible for you. For me, work-life balance, I'm not for it. I don't believe in it. I remember being told by a mentor, and so everything I do, having gone through all of that, having been so insecure, having felt so worthless in my life, and now being like, I love myself. I genuinely, I love who I am, and I genuinely like the person that I am. You know how long that took? I mean, and listen, that's not to say that I don't have my flaws, because I got a bunch of them. And you're human. When I catch them, I just kind of give myself a pep talk, like, girl, come on now. Come on, Rachel, okay. So my life's work is really about helping women activate their faith, their worth, and their will to feel more confident, to have extraordinary results every time. And a mentor once said to me, not just one, but two mentors, but this one said it just this way. He said, "You can't sell confidence."
Mm.
I said, "What are you talking about?" I already did it. I have a program called the Confident Entrepreneur Academy. It's in the vault right now, so don't go looking for it. It's not available right now. But he said, "You can't sell confidence." And I was like, I did it. We just did $52,000 on my first launch. What are you talking about? And then after that, I did another 70 something $1,000. And he said, "Yes, I know you're confident, but that's not what people want to buy. You need to sell them what they want and then give them what they need." And because I listened to someone else's opinion, I shifted my business model and I was miserable. And that kept me in circles for about 3-4 years. I'm coming out of that, right? The last 2 years or so, maybe 2 to 3 years, I've pulled myself out of that cyclone that I was getting like sucked into of like, whatever, because I did not listen and trust my own intuition. I didn't listen, again, going back to what you believe. I believe in God. I didn't listen to what God was telling me. Because when the mentor said that to me, and I was like, "What are you talking about?" God was like, no, don't believe that. No. But when you're looking at a human physical man, you can see that is real.
Right.
Well, you're just leaning on your belief and you have faith in God, but listen, I've never seen God in my face, tactile.
Yeah.
So all that to say, that experience reminded me that people will tell us that something can't be done because they can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So now when someone says, "Oh, you can't do that," I look at them and say, "Well, maybe you can't, but I can. And we're going to figure this out. So you're either with me or you're not." I don't say against me, although that is biblical. You're for God or you're against God. But listen, I'm not going to hold human beings to that standard. We're either together or we're not, and that's okay. So that's how we ended up here. A lot of people telling me that I couldn't do the things I wanted to do, and me deciding that bump it. I don't care. I don't care if you think I'm selfish. I don't care if you think I'm not good enough. I don't care if you can't do it. I mean, the truth is I do care.
Of course you do. You're a very caring individual. But at the end of the day, it was saying, well,
it's either you or me when it comes to my dreams. I'm either going to listen to you when it comes to my dreams, or I'm going to listen to me when it comes to my dreams. Who could know it better than me? Yeah. It's in me. It's innate.
How do we get to that point as mothers? I think sometimes moms are at a place where they're like, I don't know what I'm doing anymore. I feel like I'm going from one thing.
Yeah, listen, you don't even have to finish the question. I can say right now, stop looking at what other mothers are doing. Stop looking at what Instagram is telling you. Stop listening to the opinions of people who are not walking in your shoes. Do you know whose opinion I care when it comes to motherhood? The people who are living a life that is very similar to mine, that we've had very same experiences, and also, I'm thinking of one woman whose opinion I really value when it comes to motherhood. And it is the mother who is not telling everybody what to do, but who is always learning herself.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The mother that is constantly saying, "I just learned this. Look, here's how we can do it together." Not I have zero desire to get lessons from the Pinterest, Instagram mom.
Mm-hmm.
Because she's only showing me the curated perfection and imperfection. Because listen, there's also curated imperfection. Make no mistake. Those posts where you see the stretch marks, That's curated imperfection. You know how I know? Because it's in the perfect Pantone of the rest of their feed. No, go show me a tacky ass looking photo with a harsh lighting. Then talk to me about this is imperfect. No. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with a cute feed. I want a cute feed as well. Just don't act like everything is everything. Don't try to pull the wool over my eyes. And I'll tell you, I'm thinking of one friend of mine. Okay. This is sometimes it's not even strangers. Sometimes it's your friends. Sometimes it's your family that gets you caught up. It puts you in this psyche of like, I'm doing it wrong. There's something wrong with me. I'm not a good enough mom. I have a childhood friend. Since we were kids, she's always looked perfect. She was always the one with the, I remember this really stuck out at me. I mean, you might appreciate this because you're a money girl. So I grew up privileged enough to go to private school, but we didn't have the kind of money that the private school had, right?
Yep.
So
Same.
it's a tough place to be because you're privileged, but then you're around more privilege and you're trying to keep up, but you can never keep up, right? So she was the girl that they had money. But she hung out with, the lessers.
We called them the scholarship kids. That's what we were. We were the scholarship kids.
Yes. Okay. That's right. I was a scholarship kid too. So I remember one time Macy's, Bloomingdale's was right down the street from our school. And we would go there, every couple times, just to me, window shop browsing.
Right.
And I remember we stopped at the Chanel desk and she gets a Chanel nail polish. And I look and it was $16. Now this is, I don't know how many years ago. And she buys the $16 bottle of nail polish. And I look at her and I'm like, $16 for nail polish? Like my New York accent. $16? You crazy? Like, yo, that's a lot of money. And she was like, no, I got $50 for today. For today. And I was like, you got $50 for today? I said, how much money they give you a week? She said, it depends. Sometimes I get 100, sometimes I get 200. I said, a week? It was just this thing. So that always stuck with me that there were people out there that were paying $16 for nail polish and I was getting the Wet and Wild for like, $1.50.
Yeah, 99 cents.
Throughout our life, I watched her grow up, always perfectly polished, the red bottom shoes, like just never a hair out of place. Then she and I both had our daughters. Our daughters are a couple weeks apart. That baby, never a bad picture. Never is the baby's hair out of place. The baby's wearing all these name brands, like, name brands. And the Louis Vuitton little moccasin shoes. And I'm like, what? And then I remember she bought these like toys for her daughter. And I looked at and she was like, it's interactive and this. And I bought the Fancy Nancy books and she was doing all these things. And I'm like, I got to get the Fancy Nancy books, right? So I'm getting the Fancy Nancy books. And I'm trying to buy all the things. And then she has this like one giant, I don't know, like a horse or something. And it has all these interactive. And I look it up and I'm like, well, my daughter has to have this too. And it was like a $300 stuffed animal. And I remember thinking, get the F out of here. I'm not paying $300. It was always so perfect. And I felt like such a horrible mom. And by the way, this was, my oldest daughter is 12. So this is 12 years ago. This is when I'm just getting into life coaching. I'm just starting to learn all the tools that I have now. Man, if I could go back and just like give myself a hug, like, girl, you stop thinking. Don't believe hype. So, and I'm sorry that this story is taking so long.
I love all of it because I can totally vibe with it.
Okay. So, I decide I'm going to, get into coaching. And all of a sudden I start this business, and I'm now I'm a military veteran. My husband, I married a Marine. I was a Marine. I'm now out of the Marine Corps. So you want to talk about identity shift. I didn't know what to do with myself. I'm out of the Marine Corps. Now I'm barefoot at home, pregnant, right? With one baby and another baby on the way. I have the babies. I start this business. And I remember when both of my daughters, when my first daughter was born, I could not bond. Mm-hmm. I now know that I had undiagnosed postpartum depression, not once, but twice. Okay. The first daughter is born. I feel nothing other than crap. What am I going to do now? Because my husband and I were not married at the time. We were just together. I didn't know if he was going to stick around. And remember, I had the belief I'm not good enough. Nobody loves me. They're going to leave me. And now I have baggage. She ends up having some sort of a gland, but we thought it was a tumor. And they take her to the ICU. When they bring her back to me, she's got the IV in her forehead and all of these things. Just for that one moment, I looked at her and I said, I'm all you got. All we have is each other. I'm not going to let anything happen to you. I got you, kid. And I can get emotional about it now. But in that moment, I didn't feel that I got you because I love you and you're my kid and I don't want anything to happen to you. I felt I got you because, you're helpless. Right. And I'm sorry that I'm such an a-hole that I don't love you. Right. So I'm supposed to. Sorry.
No, this is like raw and real. This is like this is the motherhood that people don't talk about.
This is the stuff. Oh, okay. That's literally a reminder for me to check my daughter's grades. We have a deal because she struggles with some dyslexia. So every day at 4:00, we have a commitment. I check her grades. We go over it together. Such a far departure from when she was born. Crying is really good. It's very detoxifying for the body. So I don't apologize for crying.
Absolutely not. I completely agree. I'm a crier too.
So
like the snot cries are really good.
Yeah, the ugly cries. So I didn't feel that love, but I felt responsibility and a sense of protection, right? I didn't understand what it meant to love your child. Because what they said was when your baby's born, you're going to feel this love that like you never knew love like this existed, and that you couldn't possibly love anyone or anything the way that you loved your child. And I didn't feel that. Mm-hmm. And I felt like crap about it.
Yep.
So it was hard. I mean, I did my best with the skills that I had. And I have a lot of empathy for myself, for who I was then. Mm-hmm. And I'm so sad for that version of me because she was in so much pain.
And going through so many transitions at the same time.
Oh my gosh, all at once, because then I had my second daughter, we moved, and then I had my second daughter, and the same thing happened. I thought for sure, because now at this time, my husband and I are married. We have a house together. The circumstances are completely different. Everything I ever thought I wanted, I have. Mm-hmm. Surely this baby's going to come out of me and I'm going to feel a love that I never felt before. And I didn't feel it again. And I felt that motherhood was betraying me. I felt that I had been sold this lie. Mm-hmm. And I bought it 2 times, and you can't return them.
No,
right?
No, you cannot.
You can't give them back. I mean, you can give them away. And I respect to any woman listening, if you had to make that difficult decision, there is no judgment. You did what you needed to do in the moment with the best that you had available to you. And I just honor you. I honor you if you kept your baby. I honor you if you gave your baby away. If you are someone who has lost a baby, I honor you too. I've had several miscarriages. If you are a woman who had an abortion, I honor you.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone who has ever been in any capacity of a motherhood decision.
Right.
And for the woman listening whose womb has been closed,
yes,
it will open if it's aligned for you. And if it's not, girl, I promise, live that life.
Mm-hmm.
Well, every now and again, I'm like, man, if I knew then what I knew now, I don't know that I would have had children. Honestly.
It's really hard. It's the hardest thing I've ever had to do. I mean, I sympathize so much with what you are. I didn't know that I wanted to be a mom, and part of it was my childhood experiences and what I had gone through, and my relationship with men prior to my husband as well. And that there was a lot of that worthiness aspect of things, like, was I worthy enough to have children? Did I want to bring tiny humans into a space where I maybe didn't feel as emotionally stable to be able to provide for them? Or were they going to get in the way of me living this like dream that I wanted to live,
right.
what I wanted to do? And we don't talk about that stuff. Like, I too have a girlfriend where everything is she's a stay-at-home mom, and she's wonderful, and she's a fantastic mom. But I always look at her and I'm like, fuck, I am failing. You had cookies on the first day of school and I don't even know what's in their backpack.
My friend works and she was doing all the things. He works full time, sometimes super, super long hours. She's still like their part to this day, right? And I'm glad that you brought that back, because I want to let me close the loop on that, and then close the loop on when I had the kids. So my childhood friend, one day calls me out of the blue, and she's like, and this is a couple years now, I'm a coach, I'm doing things and business is going well. She says, I think I need to hire you. And I about fell out my chair. I was like, what are you talking about? Hire me? She was like, I'm so in debt. I'm so in the hole. Like, I was like, what? You just bought the thing. Like, she was making a lot of money. Her ex-husband was giving her, like, she had all this money, but it was like she was spending it as fast as she could make it.
Yes.
And I got to see that, yes, she loves beautiful aesthetics. And there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. If you are the beautiful aesthetic mom, own it. Nobody's knocking you for it. I'm telling you my truth. I'm telling you what works for me. If you are not the aesthetic mom, this is for you. If you are, girl, keep going. Drop us some tips, okay? So I realized in that conversation that, my perception of her reality was distorted, okay? I'm judging my perception is based on what she's showing me, right? But she's living a reality that's different than what's being published, okay? And to this day, like, now I know a little more behind the scenes. Her home is still beautiful. Her kids still look perfect. And also, I know how hard it is for her. Mm-hmm. I know how difficult she has it. And I can have empathy for where she's at because I know what's happening behind the scene. So when you start judging yourself, comparing yourself to someone else's snapshots, just remember, like, you don't know what's happening behind the scenes. And there are people that are very good at masking their pain. I was one of those people. Mm-hmm. When I was pregnant, I remember thinking that I needed to be, not needed, but I was going to be a Betty Crocker mom. I was going to bake the cookies. I was going to be the school mom. I was going to do all these things. And then I had the kids, and I remember trying to cook with my oldest daughter, but it was making such a mess. And then I was the one that had to clean the mess and do all the other things. And my husband has many, many great qualities. Helping me around the house has never been one of them. And I started to have all this resentment towards my child, towards my husband. Then when our second daughter came, who she came shortly thereafter, I started resenting everyone because I was doing all the things. I wasn't supported in the way that I wanted to be supported. I didn't like I've never liked cleaning up after anybody. I don't even like cleaning up after myself. And now here I had to clean up after 3 people. It was just like one thing after another. And I felt so bad. And then I started this business, and I remember a woman telling me, a couple of women in my circle, it was like they went one by one to tell me what a horrible mom I was.
Oh.
They were all stay-at-home moms. And the one mom said to me, your children are starving for your attention. You work too much. And I said, my children don't even talk. They're fine. They'll be fine. I am creating a legacy so that when years from now, there's something for them. I said, I am teaching my children to be self-sufficient, to not depend on anybody. I give them what they need. I change their diapers. I give them food. I put snacks at arm's reach, so that if they need something, they can go get it. And a couple years later, again, she had a very similar. Now it was interesting because her children were boys, and these boys did nothing without her. Mm-hmm. And I said one time, I would never say this now, but this just speaks to the hurt that I was feeling. I don't think I would ever come out enough. If a woman says something derogative about how I'm raising my kids, I probably would say, thank you for your opinion. I'll take it into consideration and just let it go. But at that time, I was not as evolved as I am today. And she said something, and I said, well, at least I'm raising my daughters to think for themselves, not the way you're raising your sons who can't even take a dump without you wiping their ass. I feel bad for the women that marry your son. Which is a horrible thing to say, right? That was I was projecting my pain and my hurt at what she had said to me. At another time, my children were now school aged, and one of the moms said to me, I don't even know why you work so much. I would never. I'm dedicated to taking care of my children because they're the most important thing to me. Mm-hmm. And I said, and she had made these comments many times before, and I couldn't take it. I said, let me stop you right there. This is the last time that you're going to remind me that you do nothing for yourself, that you're the selfless martyr, and that I'm wrong for living my life. Your children are going to grow up and leave. And then what will you have? Nothing. No education, no career, no opportunities. And what will I have? A thriving business and a legacy to leave my children.
And an example you've taught your young girls, right? Like,
okay.
I think we think about this I say this a lot too with, when I started my business, somebody said to me, like, are you sure that's what you really want to do? I was like, oh yeah, because I haven't given this a lot of thought. This is something I'm just, like pulling out of my rear end and deciding I want to do. After I'd spent like 2 years in the thought process of like, really self-clarifying of what I wanted to do. My daughter said to me the other day, she was like, Mama, I want to be a financial advisor like you. And I said, baby, you can do whatever you want to.
That's so sweet.
You can do whatever you want to. And I want you to see that I can do other things, and that you don't just have to be a nurse or a, whatever specific things, or a teacher, whatever we tell our girls that they have to fit into this mold, they can see other things that they can do.
Yeah. And shout out to nurses and teachers.
Absolutely.
And also,
especially right now.
So I also want to shout out to the men and women working at Wendy's and Chili's and Olive Garden and McDonald's and Taco Bell. Like, I'm not being sarcastic. I'm legit.
Yep.
We all need each other. We need people in every role. Okay. So nobody's minimizing anything. We need to be more compassionate to people's choice. I know someone, they want to be a barista. Like that's what they do.
Mm-hmm.
That's all they want to do. They don't want to do anything else. They want to serve coffee, make people happy. I said, how did you come up with that? It was a guy. He said, I like people. I like coffee. I like having a simple life. It makes me happy. I was like, that's awesome. That's freaking awesome. Like, why do we overcomplicate it? So she said that to me, right? So she said all the things. And I told her, if we're going to be friends, we need to stop judging each other. Mm-hmm. And I need you to stop making comments about how I parent my children, because I don't say anything about the way you comment or parent your children. And I don't agree with how you do it. Mm-hmm. She never said another word to me about my kids or how I was raising them again. We teach people how to treat us. So if when people make comments like that are hurtful to you, if you don't say anything about it, they don't realize that they're wrong. You need to stand up. Well, no, let me rephrase that, because I'm always working on my communication. You don't need to do anything. My encouragement to anybody listening is that if someone is saying things to you that hurt you, that cause you to think anything other than the fact that you are amazing, you are worthy, you are priceless, you are doing the best that you can, you're an amazing whatever you are. If anyone is saying anything contrary to you, my invitation to you is to acknowledge it and present it back to them. And just say, when you say this, when I hear this, I think to myself, whatever you think, and it makes me feel. Mm-hmm. This part, we leave out the I think, and then it makes me feel part. We'll say, well, you did this and you made me feel this. No one can make you feel anything. Your thoughts create your feelings, right? Correct. So but if you say to that person, when this happened, I thought, and it made me feel, now they understand why you feel the way you feel, because you're telling them the thought behind the feeling, mm-hmm. right? So mm-hmm. One time, I'll give you an example. My husband and I, this is in my book, by the way, so spoiler alert.
Yay!
My husband and I are driving, and I'm like, babe, turn left. Babe, turn left. He does not turn left. And I said, the GPS said turn left. He was like, he did not say anything. I guess somebody said, you know what? Let's just go home. You're not listening to me. So he whips it around. I'm giving the short version. We go to our corner. We're both pissed off. Hours later, I go into the room and I storm in and I say, you don't listen to me. And every time you don't listen to me, I'm thinking that either you don't care what I have to say or you think I'm stupid. So which one is it? And he was like, well, first of all, neither one of those are correct. So do you want to go back out there and try that again? Right? But the fact that I was able to articulate to him what my thoughts were is what helped him recognize the fact that when he doesn't acknowledge me, I'm telling these stories.
Right.
So we ended up having this really productive conversation. And this is important with our children as well, right? Sometimes we lash out at our children, but we don't tell them, hurry up, go do this, go do that, go do that. They need to understand why we're asking them things, why we're saying, last night I had a really uncomfortable conversation with my 10-year-old. She's in this phase where I know she's having some worthiness issues. And I can't do anything about it, right? And by the way, if you're listening, we cannot control other people's opinion of themselves. Mm-hmm. It's what they feel, it's what they think. All we can do is love them through it and say enough encouraging words so that the belief is overridden.
Right.
So she's in this place where I try to hug her or comment, like tell her she's beautiful, and she, So last night she gets in my bed and I was like, good night, little huggy, kissy, good night cuddles, which she usually asks for. And I was so pissed off because she had, rejected my love at least 3 other times in that day. And I said, okay, I want to express something to you. Can I tell you what I'm feeling right now?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't just go off. I didn't just tell her about herself. I asked her permission. We have to model the behavior that we want other people to exhibit. This is why now my husband, when he's thinking crazy thoughts, he says to me, I'm telling myself a story. Never had that language, but I kept saying it over and over again. Now he has the language. We are learning a new language together. I said to her, my daughter, I said, when you grunt and, push me away when I'm trying to show you love and kindness, I think to myself that you don't love me, you don't want to be loved. I also think and worry, did something happen to you?
Mm-hmm.
Did someone hurt you and you're afraid to tell me?
Right.
Because if that's the case, it's not your fault. And she's like, no, I just don't feel like it. When we went back and forth, but the point is, like, that's how we're having dialogue these days. And it's all about bringing to the forefront when this happens, I think, and then I feel. It changes the dynamic.
And the space that you're creating for your girls to be able to have those conversations with you when something might happen to them, right? That's how I try to think of everything. And I am far from a perfect mother when it comes to my kids. I am a hothead. I really try not to yell at my kids. I really try not to scold them. I really try to open the conversation and talk about feelings and talk about all of those things. I had a similar conversation with my daughter because she always wants to like have me cuddle. Like she'll lay in bed and I'll lay there and tuck her in. And then she like lays there and like 20 minutes later, she's like, will you cuddle with me? And I'm like, honey, it's like, I asked you 5 hours ago if you wanted to cuddle.
Yeah.
And then it's the element of, hey, babe, when I ask you to cuddle, that's the time where mama really wants to hold you and love you up. And when it's time to go to sleep, that's the time you need to refresh yourself.
Yeah.
And then we started with like, how do you fill your cup up? Like, this is how mama fills her cup up. How do you want to fill your cup up? Sleep is something that's really important. Doesn't mean that mommy doesn't want to cuddle you and love you. I just also want to go to bed too.
Yeah. Why do they want love and attention at 10 o'clock at night? You wanted nothing to do with me all day. Get out of here. Go to bed and call it. You better get out of here with this craziness, kid. But it's true. Mm-hmm. Well, one thing I reflected to her was, one thing that I observe is that you push me away a lot. And that's fine because I'm your mom. So I'm always going to come back. I don't want you to get used to that because at some point you're going to find someone that you really care about romantically, and you pushing them away just to see if they're going to come back. One day you're going to push them away and they're not going to come back. Mm-hmm. And I know that from experience because I used to be like you, honey. I want you to pay attention. I get it. If you are feeling something, it's important that you communicate. Mm-hmm. When we inform people of our thoughts and our feelings, that creates a bridge. Otherwise, you're just tearing down, any potential.
Absolutely.
And so we'll see how much stuck with her. I still talk to her in that way, so that she has the vocabulary.
Well, you're teaching her behaviors, again, back to your point earlier, that we don't teach our kids necessarily the things that they need to learn and the ways in which to operate. I think that those are really important social aspects. I remember when my kids were really young, we sent them to this phenomenal daycare. I love it. Like, they were amazing. That my kids still go there for like summer aspects of stuff. And I remember asking the teacher, like, well, aren't you going to teach them like all of these academic things, right? Because again, I see all these moms like,
yes, and the homework sheets and the extra and the summer curriculum. And I'm just like, how are you doing it?
And like, I had people who were teaching their kids like when they were 2 Chinese. And I was like, I'm not teaching my kid another language. Am I failing as a mom? Like, what am I supposed to be doing? And the woman said to me, the most important thing that your children learn right now are social and emotional skills. And And I like that to me was like I was like, oh, thank you for telling me that. As
Yeah.
a new mom, as somebody who was struggling and putting my trust and then, you know, and then I'm struggling with like, I'm sending my kids to daycare and I'm not taking care of them at home. And like, I don't have the superwoman cape. It was like all of these things and it just solidified. The most important thing is that they feel loved and know how to love.
Yes. So good.
So
So I think that's the most important thing that adults need to learn because we didn't get it as kids.
right. And now we're like in this process of learning ourselves while teaching our children.
Yeah.
And it's a crazy element of kind of this rebirth of parenting and really a healthy aspect of parenting. Because if I think about my mom and how she was parented, that was
Oh no, I
that
can't.
was not healthy.
If we look back into history at how our parents and grandparents, God bless them,
Mm-hmm.
the trauma that they have endured, I don't even know.
Yeah. That's a whole nother episode. That's a whole nother episode. It's a whole nother episode. Now you have this book that is going to be releasing, not yet. You're finishing it. We'll have you back when when the book is coming out. But you have this whole movement on being able to give people permission to offend. And when people hear that, I'm sure they're like, oh,
Yes.
Rachel, why would I want to offend anyone? Can you tell people how that relates back to that confidence aspect of things and why you're so called to that space?
Thank you for calling it a movement, because that is truly what it is. That's another thing. Movement was a word. Whenever I would hear people say like, we're creating a movement, I'd be like, oh, whatever. Think you're so big and bad. But that scolding was really a reflection of my desire to want to make an impact and feeling like I did not have the skills and I wasn't worthy enough to create something bigger than myself, right? Now I'm like, yes, this is a movement. This is a movement. Okay, so permission to offend. So what I always like to begin with what it is not. And it is not about creating intentional harm or division or strife. What it is, it's learning how to be willing to offend people in defense of your truth, in support of your truth. Okay. So, for example, I believe that God created the universe. That is my truth. Let's say you believe the universe is God and they're the same.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe that. I don't believe they're the same. I am okay with you believing what you believe. I would like you to be okay with me believing what I believe.
Right.
And if you're not, I'm okay that you're offended. Period. The reason why people don't like to offend is because they know deep down how harshly they have judged other people when someone has done something that they didn't agree with. And so they don't want to be on the other end of that judgment. The other thing is that when we think about this whole concept of offending, it's really, I'm afraid of being judged. I'm afraid of being told I'm not good enough. So if I do anything that offends you, then you're going to reject me. You're going to judge, reject, or defame me, right? First, the judgment comes. And if you didn't like what you saw, then you reject it. Then once the rejection comes, now you tell your friends, right? What do we do when we have either a great experience or a terrible experience? We don't just keep that to ourselves. No, we go and we tell everyone and their mama. So our fear as human beings is judgment, rejection, and defamation. Mm-hmm. Well, if you would raise your capacity to be offended, then you would be so far ahead of most people, right? So what's something that you think might offend me? Just say something.
Rachel, you're a liar. Like you're not speaking the truth.
Okay.
Who you are is not true.
That's good. I'm glad you went there, because that was the point I wanted to make and I couldn't pull together the words. We feel offended most often when someone says something that causes us to think about our identity. It fractures our sense of truth, right? So when you say, oh, you're a liar, right away, my brain is looking like, why would she say that? Looking for all the evidence of where did I lie? Where did I lie? I'm not a liar. Are you a liar? Right? So this is what's happening in the brain on the subconscious level. Consciously, all you're feeling is you're attacking me. Mm-hmm. My sense of security is breached now because you're calling me something I don't want to be called. And if you're true, then you're going to disconnect from me. And we need connection for survival. Like, this is scientifically proven. We need connection for survival. So the minute we feel that our connection with another person is threatened, our survival feels threatened. It's not true. It's just the stories that are happening in our mind because of our brains are primitive. Mm-hmm. Like it hasn't changed that much from back in the days when we used to huddle together in caves and hunt and fish together, and we needed the tribe to survive. We needed our little communities. So those are the things that are happening. The best way to give yourself permission to offend is to remind yourself that people are going to judge you no matter what. Judgments are automatic. You cannot control them. There are things that you can do to prevent the judgment from lingering on, but most of the judgments are automatic. Right? Okay. Yeah, absolutely. When I got on the call, right? I thought, oh my gosh, she looks like her, but she doesn't look like her. Right? So
my hair is different.
Right. That's what it was. The hair. It was the hair, right? But I didn't connect that. I didn't connect it at first. That was the automatic thought. Do you think that when you turned on the screen or before you got on, I thought, I bet she doesn't look like herself. I wonder what she looks like. I wasn't even thinking about what you looked or didn't look like. I don't care.
Right.
It's the automatic judgment. They just happen. What we do to ourselves is we start to then judge the judgment. Why did I think that? What's wrong with me? Who cares? That's not, I didn't think any of that. Cause I was like, oh yeah. And I let it go. Right. Cause I'm in this practice so much that I dismiss many of my automatic judgments because I know that they're not true.
Right.
They're just trained. It's like, it's trained conditioned patterns.
And I wonder if, especially given the cultural space that we're living in right now, like what if people really started to live in that space and that headspace? And that's why I really do think what you're doing is an incredible movement, because how could that piece some of the things together in the conversations around racial injustice and things like that, right? That might be a whole nother episode we'd have to do too, but.
Well, like, here's the thing, especially when it comes to race and racism, it would require a lot of work on everybody's part. Mm-hmm. The first thing is that we would have to be willing to agree we would have to agree to come up with universal truths that we are all willing to accept, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So these conversations, I believe, would be best had one-on-one versus one-to-many, because one-on-one, we can dialogue back and also I think that these conversations are best had like this, where we can see each other face-to-face and experience tonality and body language and facial expressions, not on the typing, because it's like, per my last email,
Yeah. You misconstrued what I said.
Yeah. Reattaching for your convenience, right? Type thing. So no. If we have these face-to-face now, one-on-one, I say to you, you're privileged. You are a white woman of privilege. The fact that you're white means you're privileged. Now you're nodding your head because you've done work, so you are already accepted. I bet that there's a white woman listening right now who is thinking, no, I'm not. I had to work hard. My parents came from nothing. I grew up in the trailer park. I was turning tricks on the street, whatever your story is. That will cause you to double down on your belief that you're not privileged. You had it just as hard. You probably had it harder than a Black kid that was born into privilege, or, that was born into money. So money and privilege are not the same thing.
Yes.
You agree to that, right? But these are little beliefs that we would have to universally agree to on a one-to-one conversation. Once you and I come to a place of understanding, then we can have a conversation one-on-one again. And this is how the ripple happens.
Right.
There's more opportunity for understanding, because let's just say, I'm going to play the advocate, okay? So you say to me, I'm privileged because I'm white.
I'm privileged because I'm white.
No, you're not. You ain't privileged, girl. I'm gonna make a story up.
Yep.
Girl, privileged is Beyonce's daughter, Blue Ivy, who just got an award, and I don't even remember the girl singing. When did she become she's privileged because she has parents. Her mom and dad are Jay-Z and Beyonce, and they have all the money. And it doesn't matter that she's Black, that she was born into it. You're not privileged at all. You're working harder than most people. You're getting up and whatever, right?
Yeah. You're telling me things I've heard before.
Okay.
I mean, maybe not the Beyonce reference, but.
Right. Okay. So as the advocate, I'm going to argue, but because you believe that you're a white woman of privilege, now we get to have a conversation, because you can say, well, can I ask you a question? Isn't it true that? Do you believe? And one thing I have found in this work is when I ask people, do you believe this? Do you believe that? Instead of arguing with them to say, no, because the Housing Act from World War II said this and that, which, by the way, I loved those arguments. And for our listeners, you and I were talking about this before we hit the recording, and thank you for the education. I'm okay with it. Anyone can come to me with their arguments, no problem. I know how to do this work. I got you. When we're practicing this work with each other, we get further faster by phrasing all of our arguments as questions, as a question of whether or not they believe that's true or false. So do you believe that Ivy is privileged because Beyonce is her mom?
She's privileged in a different way, not in the same way that you're saying that I am. She's financially privileged.
Okay. And what way are you privileged?
I'm privileged by the skin color that I have.
Why? Now you see, though, there's questions. You see how now, well, why? No, you're not.
I can't. We can't take our skin color off. I can take my role off. I can take who I am. I can subtract all the other things that I have. But I can't subtract the fact that Blue Ivy is brown. And then I'm white.
Her being brown doesn't matter. It makes no difference.
Well, to you, that makes no difference. But
I just told you what to say. I just told you.
So you think, so you think that Blue Ivy being brown doesn't make a difference?
Correct. It doesn't make a difference at all.
Can you tell me more why?
There you go. Now we're having dialogue. Now we're having conversation. Now I'm going to tell you why, and we're going to go back. And when things get heated, because at some point they will, the offering there is to say, I want to continue this conversation. Do you feel safe to continue, or do we want to take a break? Because I don't want neither you nor I to feel unsafe in these conversations. I want to bridge a gap. At the very least, I want to be able to agree to disagree.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know that some people don't want to agree to disagree?
No, they just want to win. I mean, I think that's probably some of our real problems in some of these conversations as we go into it with I want to win mentality. And I've been guilty of that as well, in many difficult conversations in my life, wanting to win the conversation, which nobody ever wins the conversation.
I'm laughing because my husband, I can hear him saying, I win.
I mean, unless it's between Jim Foreman and then I always win those conversations.
Well, there you go. So, I mean, this is the Cliff Notes quick crash course on it. It's work. It is learning and unlearning. And at the end of the day, if you want to be able to live a life that is fully self-expressed, many people say that they want freedom, but they don't understand that the prison that they're in was built up by their own thoughts, their own fears. And I don't want to give it away because I talk about it in the book, and there's this one passage. It's so good. You know, when you do something, you're like, man, that's really good. Even when I think about it, I'm like, I can't wait for her to read this part because it makes you have that, that makes sense. I hope, to my reader, it will make sense. To someone who is adamantly opposed and who's not, willing to consider another alternative, it might not. And that's okay. My favorite affirmation, I just made it up the other day after being in a dialogue. I try not to call things debates. I try to call it dialogue. Mm-hmm. I was involved in a dialogue, and the guy was just not happy with me and the case study that I did. And rather than going back and forth, I just put my hands over my heart and I said, I am not for everyone. Everyone is not for me. It is safe for me to be me. And then I was good. It didn't matter what he said. He's not for me. I'm not for him. Next.
I think that that's such a great tie-in to our entire conversation when we look at motherhood, when we look at finding that worth within ourselves, and then having those greater uncomfortable conversations that create change, like understanding throughout every single one of those, that affirmation that you just shared with us, I think is so critical. Any last words of wisdom, Rachel? Where can people hang out with you? The book will come out. We will do another episode so that people can talk. We can talk about the book more freely then. But where can people hang out with you? And what are your last words of wisdom for the audience?
Well, they're not my last.
Last on this episode.
This episode. Okay, good. Words matter, girl. Words matter.
You are right. Now I'm going to change that on every episode.
Words matter. I rebuke those word curses in the name of Jesus. Don't mind me. It's just what I do. Okay, well, let's definitely hang out over on my podcast, Permission to Offend. It's available where all the podcasts are. I am at Girl Confident with a T at the end, Girl Confident on Instagram. And my website is rachelluna.biz, B-I-Z.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I greatly appreciate your knowledge and your time and your friendship. Rachel is who Rachel is, and you get that, like, this is what you get. I told her before this how genuine she is, and I mean it. So grateful for you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.